Welcome to Nevertheless, a show dedicated to organic leaders and leaderpreneurs. Today, you will discover how to discern your essence and live powerful.
Hi, this is Nevertheless, the show for organic leaders and leaderpreneurs. My name is Mark-Mordi. Always a great time to spend bringing this show your way. Where did the days go? It's already the last week of February. This is our fourth installment in the series, The Rank Breaker. Wow. I hope you followed the series from the beginning. If you remember, we started, the first installment was just the rank breaker. And then the second installment, we talked about the rank breaker's instinct. Last week, we looked at the dimensions of the rank breaker. And this week, closing it up, we're going to look at the rank breaker's complex. The rank breaker's complex. So last week, when we're looking at the dimensions of the rank breaker, what we focused on was the fact that the rank breaker needs to be that person that recognizes without a shadow of doubt that there is room at the top, that there is always room at the top, that there is always somewhere to up level to. So the rank breaker cannot get into the rut of, oh, there's nothing more to do and play to. Neither can he begin to think like, I have the mentality of I have arrived and do nothing else. We said that when, as a rank breaker, you continuously submit what you're doing to questioning and you continue to take a look at it critically or even invite others in to join the conversation with you, the tendency is they will always find that there is always somewhere or some way to allow your vision to evolve, so that you don't just become a rank breaker for a season. You are supposed to be a rank breaker for a lifetime. If we look at our prime example, who is Jesus, or you look at the Bible from start to end, you notice that God was never faced by something. He always had something new happening. He, as dynamic as he was, he did not change his message. We also did say last week that if you're a rank breaker, part of what you need to know is that even though you will change your methodology, even though you would submit your strategies for conversations so that you can come back bigger and better every time, your message must never change. The message is always the same, that our God is the King of the universe and nothing changes that. So it doesn't matter whether you started, for instance, when I started Effectua, it was like newsletter formats, and now we actually do magazines. There was a time in the process of trying to break ranks with the magazine, we went totally digital, and we came back after a few years to take a look at it again. We agreed that to go totally digital was not the best idea we could have had. It worked for that time, but it's not working for this time. So we've gone to print. You just need to continue to push the envelope to find out what else you could do. Find out what is the trend in the industry or whatever it is that you're doing, and continue to push until you get to the place that you can see clearly what it is that you saw at the beginning. Because sometimes the pictures that we see at the beginning take a whole lifetime to manifest, and to be that person who after a while decides that you don't want to do it anymore, maybe because things have become a bit hard, or actually maybe things have become really hard, takes you away from the clique of rank breakers. And we did agree that every single one of us is gifted enough to be a rank breaker, and that is not the size of what you do that makes you a rank breaker, but the completion of what you do is what makes you a rank breaker. Today we are going to end this series by looking at the rank breaker's complex. Does the rank breaker have a complex? Is he like all of us, or is there something special about him? Is he from another planet? Is there a special gift that God gave to him that will make us call him the rank breaker? Does he face the same kind of fears that we face? Does he contend with the same economic issues that we contend with? Does he have the same relational issues that we sometimes have? All of this and much more is what we're going to be looking at in today's episode. So please don't go away. It's still the Nevertheless show. When I come back, we will continue to have this conversation about the rank breakers complex. God bless you. Please don't go away.
Are you frustrated and tired of life? Do you feel trapped in life's maze and don't seem to find your way? Or are you passionate about your purpose and destiny and want to find out more? Then get a copy of DNA. DNA, Destiny Navigational Application, is a book written by Mark-Mordi, where she coaches you to distill the answer to the cry of purpose, mandate, and significance. She teaches you how to discern your essence, discover your God-given mandate, deploy power, and demonstrate dominion. Get a copy of Destiny Navigational Application from any bookstore near you or call 234-813-360-2883 or send an email to bidemi@bidemimarkmodi.com to place your order now.
Welcome back. It's still the Nevertheless Show, and this is Mark-Mordi. We are looking today at the rank breakers complex, and the idea is that the rank breaker is not different from any other man. Yeah, maybe sometimes you become a rank breaker because you've had some privileged background, but that's not all that makes a man a rank breaker. What makes a man a rank breaker is the vision that he's received and his tenacity and commitment to consistently seek for ways to improve that which he's doing. That's what makes a man a rank breaker. Now, what this also means is that the rank breaker will suffer loss like every single one of us. In fact, practically every rank breaker has at one point or the other in his life made a bad investment. Maybe a rank breaker has at one point or the other trusted the wrong person. Maybe a rank breaker at one point or the other decided that an idea wasn't good enough only to find out tomorrow that it was the hot idea of the moment. So the rank breaker isn't special. He's not superhuman. There isn't anything about him that makes him extraordinary. No, it is just because that he submits to the leading of the Holy Spirit and he partners with an extraordinary God. That's why he's called a rank breaker. So maybe he's special in that not everyone does get to submit to this extraordinary God. So maybe in that regard, we can say that the rank breaker is special. But when it comes to composition, when it comes to experiences, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to money or no money, when it comes to intellectual achievements or not, the rank breaker is an ordinary man. He's not genius in any special way other than the fact that he received the genius of God like you and me have received the genius of God. If that is the case, then the rank breaker must have a complex. And as with every human being, the rank breaker would either have the superiority complex, the complex that says, I am the best of all of them, or he can actually be that one who second guesses every move that he makes. I know you're shocked to think that a rank breaker will second guess his every move. Actually, I think that most rank breakers second guess their every move. Everything that they do that we get to celebrate in life, they do afraid, with their knees quaking. They don't do because they don't have fears. They just do because what is a life without taking risks? That's the way the rank breaker thinks. It's not that he doesn't feel that the weather isn't exactly conducive for what he wants to do. It's not like they give him they carve out a special economy for him so that whatever he's doing, all the meltdowns and all the other things that happen in the world do not touch him. He doesn't have special conditions. So most of the time, the rank breaker understands that risk is part of the game. He understands that in going, he can get to a place where someone will reject him. And while it will hurt, he's okay to be rejected as long as he can continue to do what he's doing or what he's been called to do. The rank breaker wasn't born by superhuman parents. He's like you and me. And so when we say the rank breaker has a complex, trust me, he has plenty. He has plenty. So maybe the question would be, how does the rank breaker get around his complex? How is it that with all of these fears and these agitations that he has, how is it that with all the reservations that he feels sometimes, he still goes ahead and he breaks ranks the way he does? I would be answering that question. But first, let's look at the kind of complex that rank breakers tend to have. Complex number one is the I have arrived complex. That one that thinks that, the rank breaker, because of his many successes, has the tendency to wake up sometimes and think no one can touch me. I have gotten to the pinnacle of me. There is nothing else that anyone can do that would move me out of the way. Now, for every rank breaker that thinks like this, guess what happens next? He gets in trouble. He gets in trouble. Every rank breaker who thinks that they have arrived and there is nowhere else to go. One day, one little child somewhere will come and sweep the carpet off his feet, and flat on his face he will fall. If you take a look at the story of David and Goliath in the Bible, that's a classic example of a rank breaker who had a complex. Goliath had been led to think that his size was all that. Nobody told him that the reason why he was that slow was because of his size. Nobody told him that the reason why he couldn't focus his sight properly was because of his size. He thought that everyone would cower at his size. He felt that his size was enough to cover up all the other lapses and shortfalls that he had. So he came out one day and he started again to taunt the enemy or his opposition, telling them to send him just one man to get into the battle with. And he didn't realize that someone as little as David could take him down. When David showed up with his sling and his stones, he laughed. He made jest of David. He said to him, "Am I a dog that you come at me with a sling and a stone?" But David knew something that rank breaker Goliath did not remember, that his size makes him a big enough target for any stone, no matter how small. And that was how Goliath came on his face. So if you are breaking ranks today and you tend to think that you have arrived, you tend to think that no idea can touch your idea, you tend to act like you are the only one who has custody of wisdom. If you are a rank breaker and you begin to think like that at any point in your life, guy, let me just tell you, there is trouble looming and you don't want to be found at the other end of that trouble. Rank breakers should never feel like that. They should never sit down and think that they are better than anyone else. That's not the way it works. A rank breaker needs to be very aware of his mortality. A rank breaker needs to be very aware of his weaknesses. Not enough for them to overwhelm him, but enough for him to be wise and to take counsel when he requires it. So when you look at the complex where you feel like no one can touch you, the complex that makes a rank breaker think that he is untouchable, he gets in trouble really fast. Now on the other side of the divide is the rank breaker that consistently thinks that someone is out to get him. The one that's consistently on the verge of a nervous breakdown, consistently thinking I'm not good enough, consistently thinking, I may not be able to make it, consistently walking like on eggshells around the things that where he should be bold. The rank breaker that slips into self-sabotage. You also want to be aware of those weaknesses and be very careful. I tend to be that person who thinks that, it's never good enough. It's never good enough. That is the complex that I have. Consistently thinking, am I good enough? Will I be able to make it? What if someone shows up and exposes my flaws? What if something happens and I'm not exactly able to match up? These are legitimate fears because they make us human. But if you're obsessive about this capacity to take a look at your shortcomings and to be real to yourself, the tendency is you will also fall flat on your face. Essentially, whether you are the rank breaker that thinks that he has arrived and no one else can touch him, or you are the rank breaker that is consistently afraid that someone will come and sweep whatever it is they're doing off of their hands and their sides, we both have a problem. And the problem needs to be critically looked at and a coping mechanism put in place so that you don't get in trouble unnecessarily, or so that you don't give up on your dream before it is time. So if I am the rank breaker and I have the kind of complex that Goliath has, what should I do? It will pay to have around me what I call a circle of truth. People who tell me the absolute truth. People who are able to look me in the eye and say to me, you are not all that. People who call me out of my bull. People who say to me, don't be too cocky because you can fall flat on your face. You need those kinds of people around you. Otherwise, you just be going in what we call, coasting in what we call a fool's paradise. Going around thinking that you have arrived when everyone else has a plan that can put you flat on your face in 10 seconds. If only Goliath had one person who could tell him truth, maybe he would not have gotten in trouble the way he got in trouble. There was a day that David felt like he was untouchable. And that feeling of untouchable, he took Bathsheba, someone's wife, slept with her, got her pregnant, and then sent her husband into the thick of the battle and had him killed. And he thought that his sin was covered, that no one would ever find out what he had done. But there was a prophet in the land at that time who was bold enough to show up and say to David, you are a thief. Not only did you steal from a poor man, you had a poor man killed. And that was the truth serum that jolted David back to the place of repentance. And up to tomorrow, we see that he's someone that God thought so highly of. Yet he had so many flaws. So again, when you take a look at David, you as a rank breaker, you recognize that David wasn't one who did not recognize his limitations. David wasn't one who was fooled by his bravery and charisma that he forgot that he was also a man in the core of who he is. So that balance is the reason why up to tomorrow we will continue to talk about David. Now, how does the rank breaker manifest his complexes? Number one, self-sabotage. Self-sabotage. He begins to doubt himself. Am I good enough? Oh, this is not good enough, so I won't show up today. So many other ways that I will share with you when I come back. Let's take a break so that you can catch a breath and I can do the same. Please don't go away.
In a world filled with many fears and discouragements, life often becomes a burden. For those who know the way, life's just simple. Don't worry, you're not alone on this life's journey, as Bidemi shares powerful insight and principles from her everyday work and life experiences in her book, Nevertheless. Nevertheless is a book designed to encourage and equip you to face life with courage, hope, and determination. Get a copy of Nevertheless from a bookstore near you or call 234-813-360-2883 or send an email to bidemi@bidemimarkmordi.com to place your order now. I guarantee you, you will make it nevertheless.
Welcome back. It's still the Nevertheless show and my name is Bidemi Mark-Mordi. I was saying to us that rank breakers have the tendency to self-sabotage. What does that mean? It means it always begins with a doubt. To think, oh, anyone will not like the podcast that I'm putting out today. And so I do the hard work of recording it, make sure that my teammate who does the editing, and yet I refuse to put it out. I've done that before, so I know. I self-sabotage. And then I say to myself, oh, it's not good enough. Oh, it's not this kind of thing that people want to listen to. And for months on end, the moment I allow this thought to take root within me and I begin to act on it, the tendency is I will go through a year like I did 2018 and not put out enough podcasts. But if I just push and I take a look at what it is I have done and I say to myself, well, I know that not everyone would need this at this time. I even know that not everyone would want it. I know that not everyone would appreciate it. But there may just be that one person who appreciates it. So in the end, if that one person's life is changed, or at least impacted upon positively, then my work will be done. And then I put out a podcast and I realized that in 1 month, I have over 500 downloads. Imagine that I did not do that. What would have happened? I would have denied those 500 people who have come in and who have taken the pain to download it because it's useful to them, the knowledge that I have that might move them to the next level. So I cannot begin to doubt myself. Yes, it's good once in a while to think about yourself and know you are not all that. But please don't wallow and remain there. Let that not be where you make your camp. After you've done all of these things, you need to go back to wherever it is that you are coming from, wherever it is where you get your boost, and then begin to move and begin to do the things that you need to do. Otherwise, you will find yourself plateauing really fast. And guess what? The Bible says it's a foolish man who begins to build a house without counting the cost, and after a while will run out of material and then stay there. Rank breakers are not such foolish people. They count the cost. They know that people may boo at them sometimes. They know that the possibility of failure is high, but they need to continue to go. So self-sabotage is a no-no. I usually will begin with doubting myself. Then I move from there to establishing critically to myself that nobody wants to hear my voice. And then if I even allow myself to wallow a bit, I can begin to tell you how the different decibels of my voice don't make sense. Then if you go on and on and on, you find out that after a while, you say to yourself, no one is listening anyway, there is no need. Seriously? Do you recognize that the idea that you have today is not your idea? I got cured really fast when I started to think that the great, let me not even use the word great, that the ideas I have are my ideas. And one day the Lord showed up and said to me, you are incapable of thinking anything good. And that shocked me. But by the time he broke it down for me, I realized that no good idea comes from me. No wonder the Bible says that God is the one that gives the grace for witty inventions. It is by His Spirit that we get genius. That was why the first gift He gave to us when after creation in Genesis chapter 2 verse 7 was to breathe His breath of life upon us. So if you think that you put out anything that someone calls genius today, I promise you it had nothing to do with you. It was because God breathed upon you and He allowed you to recognize it that anyone can call you genius today. So it's not because the idea is yours. Now, if the idea is not yours, what right do you have to sabotage it? What right do you have to sit on what God had given to you to bless the world with? If you begin to think like that as a rank breaker, you will consistently move even when your knees are quaking. And then one other way that I think as a rank breaker, sometimes when I get into this place when my head becomes mushy and I begin to think that I can't continue to do what it is that I want to do, is I begin to outline and make a list of everyone who's better than I am. But what I forget in that instant to do is to think about those that I might be better than. But you see, the best way to deal with that particular mess is to get to the point that you recognize that you are not in a competition. No, none of us is in a competition. We do this simply because this is what we should do. We've been called to do this, so we do it. It doesn't matter whether all I'm able to do is do a 20-minute or 30-minute podcast once a week. And here's someone who does a podcast every day. They may have more content. They may have more to say. But they're not better than I am. You know why? Because they're not called to the same exact set of people that I'm called to. And because of that, we're not feeding the same tribe. Maybe my tribe can only take one podcast a week or one show a week. That's why the Lord will make me do one show a week. Maybe his are more geniusy than mine. So maybe his tribe can take one podcast or one show each day. That is fine. The Bible tells me that the race is not to the swift. It's not to the strong. It is just pure mercy. It's a journey of grace. So when you understand that as a rank breaker, you're not in a competition with anyone, the tendency is you tend to go for a long time. You keep going on. When you hit a hitch, you come back. You take a deep breath. You examine what it is that had gone wrong. You do your course corrections and adjustments, and you continue to go. So, you can't have that complex and begin to, because of that, mess things up for you. The rank breaker So what must the rank breaker do? I talked about self-sabotage. I talked about giving up. I talked about looking for excuses, because sometimes I will look for an excuse. I will be looking for someone who will say one negative thing so that I can shut it down. The truth is, it's not what they said to me that made me shut it down. I had been looking for a reason to shut it down. What they said just simply gave me an excuse to shut it down. And the reason why I shut it down because someone said something was because I was not big enough to own my decision and shut it down by myself. So I was looking for someone that I will use as the reason why I didn't get it done. And I am chief of that, I know. So what I do these days is, after I've told myself that because someone did this and because someone did that, or because someone did not do this and did not do that, that I'm going to shut it down, I come back after a while and I have a conversation with myself. And the conversation usually will go something like, you can't shut it down unless God told you to. And since God has not told you, your fears are valid, but they are not tenable. So go ahead and continue to do what it is that you need to do. And that gets to help me. So you find me, sometimes I will go on a break for 3 months, sometimes longer. I'm not proud to say it. Sometimes for a whole year, I'm on that break where, I'm constantly feeding myself lies, saying no one needs what it is that I'm doing. But it doesn't matter whether I've been away for 1 month or I've been away for 12 or sometimes for 3 solid years. I always will find my way back. Because until I find my way back and I continue to do what it is that He's called me to, I am not breaking any ranks. And as long as I'm not breaking any ranks, I will be accountable. I will be held accountable when I do get to stand before the one that gifted me. And because I don't want to stand in front of the God of heaven and begin to twiddle my fingers, I usually crawl back. Now, what is the pain that I get to face when I crawl back? I find out that I have to win your trust again. I have to come back and begin to tell you I'm willing to do this. Not the best way to live my life, I know. And that is why I'm sharing with you today. So perhaps you would hold me accountable and I can hold you accountable too. So what will I do to ensure that I am a rank breaker who is consistently breaking ranks? Number 1, consistently have frank conversations with you. Consistently talk to yourself. Have frank conversations with you. Tell yourself the truth. Bidemi, you are not all that. Get up and go and do what you need to do. Bidemi, you are not excused. I know that someone had failed you. I know that someone has not done the right thing, but you do not have the right to stop now. Get up and go and get it done. Bidemi, people have failed before. You are not the only one who has failed. Get up regardless. I know you feel a bit of shame. I know you feel very self-conscious right now, but you need to get up and do it afraid. Have frank conversations with yourself, the kind that most people would not be willing to have with you. Especially if you are the rank breaker, the tendency is everyone looks up to you around you most of the time. So no one will be big enough to tell you the truth. You say, I'm not doing it again. They say, yeah, we don't even need it. Don't listen to them. You need to be able to tell yourself the truth. Call it as it is. And the one way that I tell myself the truth is to always go back to what God told me. The moment I find myself acting in a way contrary to what God told me, I know that I am messing up. And the moment I begin to feel that way, I get up and I do what it is that I need to do. So have frank conversations with yourself. The other way to make sure that you come back every time that you begin to self-sabotage or all of those things that we do is to be authentic enough to say to people, I'm afraid, when it is fear. Be authentic enough to accept or acknowledge to yourself what it is that you are feeling. And make sure you have at least one person that you can tell. Fear of failure is the reason why I'm not moving. Or I'm afraid that I will lose money. That's why I'm not. Just give voice to your fears. One of the greatest disservice you can do yourself is to bottle your fear in. Not tell anyone. Just hide it and begin to do like you're bold and begin to act like you know what you're doing when actually you are almost crapping in your pants. It's better for you to open your mouth and tell someone and say, look, I'm afraid. And maybe they will be able to help you. Maybe they will not be able to help you. But the moment you give voice to the fears that you're feeling, I promise you, the hold of that fear inside of you is broken. So make sure you are authentic enough to speak your truth. Speak it out. Give voice to it. And then number 3, the third thing that you must do is make sure you have a circle of truth. Who are the people around you that can look you in the eye and tell you truth? Any man or woman who refuses to have that kind of relationship where someone can tell them the truth is a disaster waiting to happen. Who tells you the truth? Who can look at you? Who is vested enough in what you are doing, knows what you are doing, follows what you are doing, is interested enough that they can call you and say, you said you were going to do this in 4 months. It's now 6 months, I'm yet to see it. Do you have such people? Because if you don't, you need to get at least one person who makes you their ministry. Yes, I said it. And all they do is check on you to ensure that you are living the life that God has called you to live. Have a circle of truth. If you take a look at all of this, what you will see is that rank breakers can be afraid. Rank breakers can find themselves in moments of weaknesses. But if they don't take care of it, that weakness can become character. So I guess what I'm saying here today is that a rank breaker is not a special breed of people. Rank breakers are ordinary people who have made up their minds not to allow life keep them in a box, to continue to think as outside of the box and continue to achieve the things that God has called them to achieve. Now, recognize that you can't do it all by yourself. As a rank breaker, a day comes, you usually will start alone, but after a while you meet people around you. And sometimes the kind of people that you have around you can determine whether you will give up or whether you will not give up. If you have another rank breaker around you who's bought into your dream, I promise you, even when you decide to rest, they will keep going. And that can help you continue to break ranks without even lifting a finger. So you see that rank breakers are not special people. They go through everything that we go through, but they are consistently standing. They are consistently standing. They are consistently standing. And that is important. One of the biggest things you can do for yourself as a rank breaker is to be consistent. Whether you are afraid, be consistent. When you are not afraid, be consistent. When you know what you're doing, be consistent. When you don't know what you're doing, be quick to tell everyone consistently, I don't know what I'm doing now, but I will not stop until I figure it out. And you'll be amazed how far it is that you will go. We've come to the end of our series on the rank breaker. I know that you are a rank breaker. And remember, this has nothing to do with size, neighborhood qualification, and stuff like that. This is just because God has called you and He's put His breath in you. Go out and do excellent things for Jehovah, even when you are afraid. That is what we're saying today. Thank you so much for joining the show. It's been the Nevertheless Show, and my name is Bidemi Mark-Mordi. As we go into the month of March, we will come to you again with a brand new series, and I'm sure that you would have fun just going with us. I hope you're learning as you have fun with us. Please always download and keep these things because they're for your future reference, and please share with your friends and your circle. You can never tell who would need this. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to listen to me. Like you already know, I tend to think to myself that I'm not all that, but I'm willing to keep going. I do hope you are willing to keep going too. There is no telling how far you can go. God bless you richly. Remember that there is a genius in you, and if you just embrace your superpower, you will live a powerful life. I'll see you next week if Jesus tarries. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Nevertheless. For more information and resources, call 0813-360-2883 or send an email to bidemi@bidemimarkmordi.com. Don't forget that when you discover your purpose, you will live powerful.